Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie and TV discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portress, and I'm joined by sweet Shansa Kovacs from the internet.
We were only supposed to watch 3, but I watched all 10.
Oh, my word. And Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and I thought this was a Blues Brothers tie-in.
We are back this week in August, November. There was no good rhyming scheme. I'm sorry. It probably should have been like Netflix November. But hey, given the amount of things that are coming out on Netflix recently, that might not necessarily be...
And thank you, Netflix. Thank you.
Yeah, God bless you, because we've had new stuff to do the last couple of weeks and everything. And because of this, we'll get that at the end of the show here. We're having to shuffle some things around, which is a good thing. I like good new things. It makes me happy.
Who would have guessed?
And if we're being honest, it's like Netflix Marchtober. I mean, that's what the month has been like.
Yeah, it's going to continue on that. So because Netflix does just a little bit of that. But today we are talking of the first 3 episodes of Warrior Nun. Yeah, that's a tough word for me to say sometimes. Warrior, because you got to enunciate the whole thing, otherwise you just sound like you're half in the bag. But before we get going and everything, we do want to say a big giant thank you to everyone who helped support this show over at patreon.com/HMP. And you guys are awesome. You help this show keep going along. You get to vote every single month. And as you listen to this, the vote is up now. So go vote on that. And not next week, but the week after. Again, we'll get to that at the end of the show and everything. But you guys get to vote on what we watch. Plus, you get the pre-show, post-show, and, of course, the Dinger Zone. We are wrapping up the Matrix movies. We had to re-record 2 and 3, but by gum, we did it. Come hell or high water, you guys over at Patreon got those. And
Can I be honest about this, Adam?
Sure.
I have to be 100% honest with you here, which is that when you first told us that that's what happened, my knee-jerk reaction, and I mean like within 3 seconds, everything flips, right? So within 3 seconds, I got very, very angry indeed.
Mm-hmm.
But then literally within 3 seconds, I thought, well, Adam has been here for every single episode. He does all of the engineering for the show. Let's give him this and stop being a sucky baby and just do it again. It's going to be just fine. And it turned out great. It turned out better than the first ones, quite honestly, in my not so humble opinion.
I took a glasses half full approach, and I said, at least I don't have to watch the movies again.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. You guys didn't watch the movies again?
No, I made the worst mistake ever. But hopefully you don't make the worst mistake ever and get yourself some of that. Now we're starting a new thing. Come the week after this one, so you've got a week to take care here. But in the past 10 years, a movie has celebrated its 10th anniversary. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. It's out on Netflix right now. Speaking of kicking down in Netflix October and everything, it's on Netflix right now, so you can check that out. And here our review of it. What episode did you say we covered this in? Like 37 or something like that?
Ah, man, you're making me look it up.
I'm sorry, but I was just guessing. But somewhere in the third, but like really early on when we reviewed that. So it's been some time. And my point is, we've gone a couple hundred episodes since then. Have our opinions on Scott Pilgrim versus the World changed? We'll check that out over next week at patreon.com/HMP.
Episode 32.
32.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Man,
Euro Movie Podcast.
Man. So we'll see if things have changed or if things have stayed the same. Maybe it's like a fine wine and it's gotten better with age. We shall see. Check that out, patreon.com/HMP. And if you can't support us there, man, for heaven's sakes, why don't you go down to the iTunes there, give us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
And I'm not just reading the same one again that I did last time. I screwed that up. But this one's a new person, honest to goodness. Or otherwise, I'm having a stroke and reading all new letters, and that's going to be a real problem. But this one comes to us from Tommy Wins 1. It's entitled Great Podcast. Always looking forward to new episodes. I do hope they do more movie about mangas. Interesting. Great podcast for comic book fans. That comes to you from Tommy Wins 1. Thank you, Tommy Wins 1.
Thank you, Tommy.
And
I hope you listen to Ichi the Killer if he's a manga fan.
Oh yeah, that was an interesting episode in many a way.
Oh, did we review that one? I can't remember.
Some of us did.
Wait till we revisit it for Patreon.
Oh yeah, that's going to be where they're demanding with their pitchforks. It's like, hey, you need to do Ichi the Killer again. We need it's. I know it's been 2 months, but we need a refresher. All right, so let's get into it, boys and girls. Here is the trailer for Warrior Nun.
My whole life, I've dreamt about being dead. I leave my body, and I see myself from above. A normal girl. Until I wake up and realize that I'm still the freak I've been my whole life. One thing I've learned since then, life has a really f***ed up way of making your dreams come true. Okay, this isn't a dream. This is hardcore, real life. No. With superpowers?
We belong to the Order of the Cruciform Sword, devout women who have dedicated their lives to fight in an ancient evil. Whoever bears a halo is a new champion, a warrior nun.
I'm sorry, can we maybe jump to the part where any of this has anything to do with me?
Hell will rise up, heaven will fall. How did our greatest weapon against evil end up in an unbeliever?
The halo is a gift. You're God's champion. It will enhance whatever natural abilities you already possess.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're entering a new era of enlightenment. Heaven does exist, because I discovered a gateway to it.
People have tried to make me into something I'm not. Pain is what made me a sister warrior.
Shotgun Mary. Cool name. Why do they call you that? I drink a lot.
Sometimes life just changes right out from under you, you know?
Yeah, there's something special about her.
She's great. Really stable.
Find that girl.
I train harder than anyone else.
I really hope I got God's message right.
Alrighty, that was the trailer for Warrior Nun. We're going to be reviewing the first 3 episodes here on Netflix. But before we get into it, boys and girls, you know what time it is.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Bruce's has a lot of familiar elements in it. Are they familiar for a reason?
Well, my question is, who's ready for some nunsploitation?
Yeah.
Warrior Nun Ariala is a Canadian comic book created by Ben Dunn that debuted in 1994. And much like fellow Canadian comic books, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Warrior Nun Ariella features an art style that is very much influenced by manga. Now, the story revolves around Sister Shannon Masters, a member of the Order of the Cruciform Sword, a military order of warrior nuns and magic priests in the service of the Catholic Church. And according to the Warrior Nun lore, the first Warrior Nun was a Valkyrie named Arya, who in the year 1066 decided to cast aside her pagan ways after seeing the last of the Danes defeated in England. She filled the spiritual void by joining the Catholic Church, and thus the Order of the Cruciform Sword had a founder. On account of her being a Valkyrie, she was kind of magic and stuff, so she picked a new Catholic name, Ariola, or Ariala, I don't know how you pronounce it. And she chose an avatar each generation to carry on her mission of being all out of bubblegum, which is, you know, my nice They Live reference. The current generation, being Gen X at the time of the comic's original publication, has Sister Sharon as the current Ariala. And guys, I got to tell you, she's one heck of an Ariala. She gets right out there in the world with her team of tough sisters and battles the forces of evil. Also, Ben Dunn draws her in thigh-high boots and a kind of spandex leotard habit that can really cause some confusing feelings for adolescent boys who attended Catholic school. But despite her pious stripper chic wardrobe, she does serve the Lord with faith and humility. This comic is one of those that does something I like. It draws criticism from secular readers for promoting Catholic values, and it also draws criticism from the Catholic Church for having a nun in spandex with what I will call anime-sized chatter buckets to go with some Holy Mary Mother of God dumps like a truck. Now look, Sister Shannon looks like she could be a hard habit to break, but sexy ain't just for sinners anymore. You may be surprised to hear that a real nun was critical of the character's costume. Sister Mary Walsh, a speaker for Washington, D.C.'s United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, stated that Ariala's costume is, quote, offensive. The habit is something sacred. The way the upper half of the muscled, buxom Sister Shannon's ultra-low-cut battle habit would show cleavage and show perpetually erect nipples through the cloth, while the lower half consists of a loincloth of that much, well, it is a contradiction in terms of how a nun's habit is meant to hide the body in order to discourage lust, end quote. Do you know what Ben Dunn's reply was?
No.
This is another quote, nipples sell. Now, there's a story about the inspiration for Warrior Nun, Ariala, and whether it's true or apocryphal, I think it's worth sharing. There is a real Catholic Church organization called the Fraternité Notre Dame, or the Fraternity of Our Lady. And in 1991, a chapter was established in New York City's East Harlem in order to found a soup kitchen. It was in New York that Sister Marie Chantel, who had been a black belt in judo, learned Taekwondo under a Hell's Kitchen martial arts master. However, there's no confirmation on whether or not he was a blind attorney. Now, do you guys think you see where this is going? True story here. Her fellow nuns, including the Mother Superior, also learned self-defense, hearing that the neighborhoods were dangerous, though they insist that their martial arts training is mostly for sport and that they have had no problems with the surrounding neighborhoods. Their story was ultimately picked up and reported by the New York Times. Now, look, I went to church a lot as a kid, and I've got to admit, if they'd taught karate in Sunday school, I would have liked it a whole lot better. I'm not necessarily knocking the theology. I'm just saying I would have liked to smash my hand through a stack of boards and followed up with an amen at Vacation Bible School. Well, Ben Dunn, who attended Catholic school in Canada, read that article and was inspired. I imagine he thought, quote, butt-kicking nuns totally kick butt, and I also bet they're smoking hot, end quote. Now, I would say that he was at least half right, because I can't think of a better story to tell than that time you got mugged at knife point in Hell's Kitchen, and one of the penguins from the Blues Brothers totally roundhouse kicked your assailant in the jaw, and you got to keep your wallet. I was born and raised Protestant, and I'm pretty much secular now, but I'd convert in a heartbeat over something like that. But the question really shouldn't be if the Hell's Kitchen Shaolin sisters really inspired the comic, but rather, why did it take Ben Dunn 3 years to publish that? This is the kind of thing a guy can't just sit on. You need to get it out there in the world. Now, according to the religious affiliation of comic book characters, and yes, that is indeed a real book, Batman is a lapsed Episcopalian, Superman is a Methodist, and Spider-Man seems to be a Protestant of unidentified denomination. Well, those guys are all morons. The OGs of European Christianity are in the game now with Warrior Nun Ariala, and fellas, for the comics, at least, she was a game changer.
Who thought that 13 minutes into this podcast, we'd have this much nipple talk? Anyone have money on that? I sure did.
I don't think it's a mistake that he picked a name that could easily be misread as Areola.
Well, yeah. I was unaware that this was a comic book thing. I knew other than, obviously we're doing it for the show, so I kind of put two and two together before I watched it. But I knew nothing of it. I really knew nothing other than the title, to be quite frank with you. And I'm very mixed about this, and so I feel like, from what we kind of talked about very, very briefly before we started the mic here and everything, is I feel like I may be in the middle of guys that think differently about this. Let's see if we can sway me one way or the other here.
Well, I'll just go ahead and open up with I was bored, man. I spent a fair amount of time watching this being bored, but I know you weren't, Sean.
Well, I mean, let's call a spade here. I'm not claiming that this show passes the phone test, because it doesn't. It does not pass the phone test. But when the show is good, to me, it's very good. I'm completely in the bag because, full disclosure here, I was raised Catholic. And so the first 16 years of my life, I went to church every week. I went to Catholic school in junior high. I mean, I there was a whole lot of Catholicism in my life, but as every American Catholic will tell you, you reach a certain age as a Catholic and then you are no longer religious. It's just the way it goes here. I think because there's a questioning nature to being Catholic that most people are like, yeah, I'm going to opt out of that. I'm going to take the red pill. Thank you. And so the problem is that when you are a lapsed Catholic, as I am, that whenever you see something that gives you the old tingle, where you're like, hey, wait a minute, that's a real thing. That happens a lot in this show, which means to me that the creators have done either their homework or they themselves are Catholic. And things that I mean, don't get me wrong, there is a ton of horse hockey in the show, which you have to have because otherwise the show is completely unwatchable. But they touch a lot of hallmarks where you're just like, hey, wait a minute, that's a real thing. Hey, that's a real thing too. And there's fun touches in it. Like, for instance, every episode is named after a chapter. And I actually did the legwork on that to see what each verse is, you know, in the Bible. And that was fun to hunt down. And there's a bunch of things like that. So for me, like I'm already half in because I was raised with this. And there is a lot of like, for lack of a better term, there's a lot of superhero stuff in Catholicism. I mean, there just is. And
Catholicism in and of itself, there's like, again, for lack of better words, there's a lot of lore behind it.
Yes.
There's so much stuff and like all like the history of the Vatican, how all that stuff works. For example, to where the second Dan Brown movie, whatever the heck those things are called, the second one where half of the movie is them kind of choosing, trying to figure out who the next pope is going to be. And there's this whole weird adventure on the other side. I'm like, I'd rather hear you talk about how you select the pope. That was far more interesting bit of a story than the BS action thing that they had over here. So there is some sort of, at least to the Protestant outsider, there's always something that's a little bit interesting and kind of off and strange behind Catholicism because there's so much more, so to speak, lore than with, a Baptist isn't going to have that, not like Catholicism,
And the weird part about that movie is that movie is actually the first book. You're talking about Angels and Demons, and that's the first book. That's the less successful of the Dan Brown books.
Mm-hmm.
But what would happen is that people read Da Vinci Code and then went backwards to read Angels and Demons.
Now, a big difference, though, part of what I'll call me being bored a little bit with this show is the comic book comes out in 1994, and it is everything you kind of think about right off the cuff about 90s comics when it comes to the art.
Sure.
The name, the art, and it's just over the top with the name Warrior Nun Ariala, the cover with the sexy nun, usually with like large oversized weapon of some sort, and the very, very anime inspired artwork, manga inspired artwork. But then you read the story and you're like, wait, like this guy actually understands sort of the history of the Catholic Church, and B, this is not making fun of the religion in terms of the action and the story. It's the artwork that, might have set some people off. It's like the artwork got you in, and then you're like, well, wait, this is actually got some heart to it. I guess you could say it's got some morality to it. It clearly isn't like Preacher, because you see the art and you think, okay, this is going to be like a more actiony, more cartoonish thing like Preacher, and you go in and no, they actually take the church very seriously, and they're not being openly sacrilegious at all. So the show seems to be missing that initial hook to me. It doesn't have like the over the top production design. The costumes aren't crazy. Like it doesn't have that bring you in expecting one thing and then convince you to like something else, like, which I thought was a nice twist with the comics. I feel like this is really, really taking its time, not in a good way, but really taking its time to get you to care about what's going on. And that was rough for me.
I absolutely agree with that, Bruce. What they do in 3 episodes really should have been done in 1 episode, maybe 1.5 episodes. Because you're right. It takes a while to get there. They leave you enough breadcrumbs to where you're interested to see where they go next, but only just so. You know, you're not begging for what's next, but you're like, all right, that's kind of a cool element. Let's see where that, leads us to. And for me, part of it is, a lot of the cast. I find a lot of the cast not so hot. Now, the lead girl that plays Ava, Alba Baptista, she's fantastic.
And that's a totally new character for the show. That character not in the comics at all.
I like her a bunch. She was so in the story. She was in a wheelchair, dies, and then just wakes up. Guess what? You can walk and everything now. You've got some weird halo thing in your back. I like what she's doing throughout the show. She's got kind of a what's her nose there from Game of Thrones. She's got a little bit of that vibe going on.
Emilia Clarke?
Yeah, she's got a little.
She's a little Emilia Clarke.
Yeah, she's a petite little lady, got a smile that lights up the room and everything like that. That's the kind of, and she's good, and I like her a lot. But the rest of the supporting cast, for the most part, and even from a couple character actors that I like, is just kind of falls short for me.
Well, if we get, I'll get into that in a bit. But to get back to Alba Baptista. When I first saw, I watched the first episode, and I don't know if it's because of my old man eyes or whether it's the fact that this was shot entirely in Spain. And so there's a bit of a culture shift happening, but I could not tell if Alba was one of those actresses who is a weird kid where she's 14 but can speak like an adult, like your Ellen Page type, or if she was an actual adult. And so I had to look it up, and then I saw, she's actually a 23-year-old adult. But because she looks so young at the beginning of the show, they do such a good job of making her look like she is a kid, like a little kid.
From this orphanage for, unprivileged children, of course. And it's
right that I couldn't tell. And so that part is interesting to me. I found her to be one of those actresses where I'm like, oh, she's really great. But when it comes to the supporting cast, you are really short sheeting the secret weapon to this show, which is Shotgun Mary, because the actress who plays Shotgun Mary, the character of Shotgun Mary, this show should be about Shotgun Mary, because that character is vastly more interesting than Warrior Nun. And Bruce, to get to your point for a second, because I want to go backwards for a second, which is that, talking about the source material, it sounds like, it was written in 1994. So it's going to be a little bit of The Crow. It's going to be a little bit of Grendel, everything's so extreme, like that kind of thing. But I think what they tried to do is they tried to retrofit an existing property into basically a YA show.
That's exactly what I feel like they've done.
And look, that stuff isn't going to appeal to 3 middle-aged white dudes, but it will appeal to people who generally wouldn't watch this style of show, which is what makes the show so interesting to me, is that, the main character and her love interest are so very cute and they're so very good together. And it's nice to see that stuff. I will be 100% honest with you guys. I did fast forward through some of that stuff because I am a middle-aged white dude. So I don't care so much. There is interesting aspects to that relationship to me, but for the most part, I'm in it for the Catholic action.
See, what I kind of wanted them to do And it's tough because I want them to do something, but I don't have any solid recommendations on how they do it. So it's not fully constructive criticism, but I totally agree that they can't go the TNA route to make it seem over the top. Right. I think they probably could go a little hyper violent or something, but I feel like they need something in the introduction, a little something starting off to make you think this is going to be something ridiculous. And then you watch and you're like, oh wait, this isn't ridiculous at all. Like it kind of needed that two worlds colliding kind of feel is what I was thinking was missing, but I don't know what they would do to be over the top with that other than maybe just, a little something like out of the, in Kick-Ass, they do this great because they bring in Hit Girl, who is, at the time, Chloe Grace Moretz is 12 or 13 years old.
Right.
She looked younger than that.
People, right.
Yeah. She looked younger than that. So you got like this super cute little girl who's just, cutting people.
Ultra violent and great and speaks like an adult. So it's so weird.
Yeah. Uses words I dare not use even in private. So,
even in private,
I don't use.
Won't say it by himself.
Word. I would get in big trouble in this house.
If he's alone in the garage and stabs his thumb, he's just going to be like, just keep it inside.
So I gotta tell you guys
words to be that.
I gotta tell you guys because I did a real deep dive on this because I wanted to know everybody responsible for this show because I found it so interesting, just the juxtaposition of the show. And also, I had watched a show on Netflix previously that was also a Spanish show, which was The Bank Heists. And The Bank Heist, the first season of that show is terrific, but anything after that is the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen in your life. I mean, it's straight garbage. And so seeing this show, it feels like a lot of the same people worked on both properties. And they did. They absolutely did. But they have someone from our past working on this show, and that is David Hayter. And David Hayter is the guy who played the Guyver 2. Yeah. He was the Guyver.
Yeah.
And he's the guy who wrote X-Men and X-Men 2 and Watchmen. I mean, he has done a lot of things.
He's Solid Snake.
Right. I mean, he's in a lot of stuff, man. And to think, because he's a producer on this show. And doesn't it feel like, and maybe I'm totally wrong, but doesn't it feel like that was a David Hayter thing where like, let's name each episode after a Bible verse, because all of them are totally BA. Like all of them are. So like episode 1 is Psalm 46.5. And that is, God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God will help her when the morning dawns. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And we have the same problem, or I have the same problem with this show that I have with Umbrella Academy. And that's not to say that I dislike, you guys know I love Umbrella Academy, but they have the same issue of they're focusing on things like this where the titles are great. However, when it comes to smaller stuff, they aren't really like, it doesn't make much sense. So like, for instance, you have like where is the orphanage located? Because Ava can go like to the cool downtown bars right after walking out of the orphanage. And then 5 minutes later, she's on the beach. Like, where is this orphanage? Like it's stuff like that where I'm like,
it's the Disco Hatton Beach orphanage.
Say what?
It's the Disco Hatton Beach orphanage.
I mean, they are. She rolls out the door, man, and she's right there, like where, like everything, like it's a little. It's like, guys, like you couldn't like look at your own geography here, like you've done all of this work, you couldn't do work to that.
And to be honest, I don't know why she wasn't more excited. Like, there not enough time goes for celebrating the fact that, oh my God, I am A, alive, and B, I could walk. Not enough celebration time for that, in my opinion. I think you'd be a little bit more joyed.
I think it needed a little like Peter Parker the day after he gets the spider bite in the Sam Raimi movies. Like her limbs are going to be withered from spending years as a quadriplegic. They should have had that moment where she's like, whoa, these are really my, like the arms go from being withered to being.
I can forgive that a little bit because, when your superpower is God, like it's just all a miracle. So it's fine.
That's fair.
And I've always liked that as like God as superpower, because that's no less stupid than, hey, I just got hit with gamma rays.
It's a big blue light to the sky. It's like, how far are you really going here?
Right.
I only really like it if you get the Samson and Delilah thing where you lose your faith, you lose your power, then you regain your faith and regain. But that'll be season 2, right?
Yeah, probably.
I would
It's
think.
always the second movie in the trilogy.
Well, hopefully all season 2 is just Shotgun Mary, and occasionally we see Ava.
Well, so, okay. All right. I'm going to take this half a second because I got to push back a little bit because I found Shotgun Mary to be terrible. Maybe the worst part of the entire show.
Oh man, look, she is suffering from the Iron Fist problem that she isn't good in the fight scenes and the fight choreography. She can get better at that. But the thing that I really like about this actress is that when this actress walks into a room, no matter who else is in the room, you immediately go to her. And whether or not you don't like that actress, that's fine. But I love her. I think that she's great. I think that I think it's that perfect like Keanu Reeves Matrix blending of like the actress is the character.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoyed the performance. I don't enjoy the fight choreography because she's not very good at it. But hopefully for season 2, they're going to do what they did with Keanu Reeves and just give her 6 months of fight choreography. Now she's great.
I think half of my problem would be solved with a lot of her movement because she does not move like this character would move. She looks like she moves as an actress would move. She holds a shotgun up and everything. And I'm like, oh, you have only been holding that for about a week now, haven't you? Because it doesn't look like it's part of her when it feels like, I don't know, there's just something I like because I'm rooting for her because I like her look. I feel like there could be something there, but as it stands right now, at least within these first 3 episodes, it's not really doing it for me. She's kind of boring. The line readings to me just are like, I really wish I could believe that coming out of you, but I don't see it.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to talk you into it, but
it might, like I said, it might
progressively,
be
like in the later episodes, she is great.
And like I said, the later episodes may change me, and I'm wildly open to that. I always tell people, I'm like, I want to love everything. I honest to God do. I would much rather have a fantastic time than a crappy one. Please believe me, I want to love it.
She does have the best line of the first 3 episodes, though, when she says, I carry 2 shotguns so I don't have to train, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
That was fun. I did like that. I'm like, okay, good little writing.
And
bit.
I'm kind of hankering for a crossover that's like, give me just maybe 3 episodes of like Pirate Jenny and Shotgun Mary on a mission together.
Pirate Jenny.
What a pull.
A deep Watchmen television show callback.
Everybody's like,
so
what?
The other thing that I wanted to bring up is Sister Frances, the woman the nun who watches over Ava when she's in the orphanage, because I thought that I recognized her. So I looked her up and I didn't recognize her. But while doing that, what I found out is that she is in a Thompson Twins video as like the main actress in the Thompson Twins video. And she's in the video. The name of the song she's in is Sister of Mercy, which is that like works. A weird, like, oh, hey, even though she's not a nun in the video, there's a whole lot of her, looking very depressed indeed and looking out windows. And it is so funny to watch when you see her performance in this movie or this TV show where you're like, oh, hey, okay, I see what's happened to your career. And that's great. Good job by you.
Now, if you did a little bit of like the behind the scenes research there, Sean, you looked into some of the actors. Do you know when we're hearing Ava speak, is that really Alba Baptiste's voice?
It is, and okay. She's originally Portuguese, and she can speak like multiple languages. And when you see like behind the scenes stuff with her, She is speaking English to the camera, and it is the same voice.
Okay.
So it is her.
Because I didn't hear really any distinguishable like Portuguese accent or anything. So that's why I was curious if that was her voice or not.
Well, my guess is that because, you know, she's a very beautiful girl, is that, you know, her parents are probably fabulously wealthy. They probably traveled internationally her entire
Nobody ever
life.
assumed that about my parents when I was young. They're like, "Ooh, your parents."
Well, we do.
broke.
I did. I assumed that when I first met you. I was like, oh, clearly this man comes from money. Another thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about JC's clothes. So like the romantic interest, the romantic love interest, JC. Every single time he goes out, it is hilarious to see. So like in the first episode, they're going to like the cool club, and JC puts on clothes that make him look like Uncle Buck going bowling.
Yes.
He's got a windbreaker on and a Hawaiian shirt, and I'm like, what is happening here? Why does he go to the cool club and he has a windbreaker with a Hawaiian shirt underneath it?
It's the European fashion sense can't be comprehended by us humble North Americans.
Well, it's weird because I looked it up, right? So like, because Christina Sapena is the costume designer, and she worked on big things like Maleficent, and even though she's not the Stallone connection this week, she worked on Rambo: Last Blood, and but like you have that clothing option, and then when she dresses up, when he dresses up for the big tech company gala, he's dressed in like he's dressed almost like an Armenian gangbanger, where he's got on like Adidas tracksuit. It's just so weird. It's like, you're at a tech company gala. Why are you dressed like that? It's so weird.
Yeah, I did wonder how no one said anything. It was just like, excuse me, sir, what is this nonsense? At least like the other ones are dressed up almost enough to where you could understand it. But with him, it's like, nah, dude, you'd be turned away in 2 seconds. You can't get into a regular nightclub looking like that.
Yeah. Yeah, you would never get in. At least not here. Maybe abroad. I haven't gone to enough clubs abroad.
Well, no time like the present, Sean.
Oh man, I really hope that my club days are over. I did that for many years. I never went to a club, and then after I left the club, I was never like, man, that was a really great idea.
Yeah, super great time, everybody. Never been said.
I always walk in and say I was expecting more club sandwiches.
Mm-hmm. No sandwiches at the door even. It's fun enough. I did like the action. I thought the action was actually quite good in this. I was surprised at how decent it is, despite everything else seeming like they only kind of, I don't know, I guess over the 3 episodes, it kind of felt like we were talking much about writing before this podcast going. It felt like they were just kind of going, all right, we've got a basic idea, but we need to kind of catch up and figure out exactly what we're doing in these first 3 episodes, because it just seems disjointed. I think that's my biggest...
I will say in the middle of the 2nd episode, I did say to myself, man, this movie could use some Whoopi Goldberg.
But I like the fish out of water stuff. That stuff's fun. You know, seeing her
episode 3. It was episode 3 when I really felt like something was starting to happen, and like now I might be able to get into this story, but then I was done because I had only allotted myself time for the 3 episodes we agreed to watch. So that also kind of had like a little bummer feeling. It's like, okay, this is the last bit I get to watch. We're finally getting like glowing swords and stuff. Like this is starting to get into my cup of tea, and now we're done with it.
Oh, Divinium. Yeah, you're talking
Divinium.
about Divinium. Also, Liquid Divinium, part of Call of Duty Black Ops 3. It's true. It's true. I looked it up because I wanted to see if that was a real. I wanted to see if that was a real element, because I was like, that's not a real element.
It's an alloy made from unobtainium.
Exactly right. So the one of my favorite things, because I know you want to get into the 3rd episode, but I got to go back to the 2nd episode for a second, Bruce. because one of the things that drove me absolutely bonkers is they're at the tech company. They're sneaking around in the tech company, and
the janitor's badge opens everything, by the way.
Say what?
I said the security guy's badge opens everything, by the way. There's nothing that card can't get you into on that campus.
Well, the thing that drove me most nuts is that Ava sees the wheelchair and she's like, "Oh my God, like these wheelchairs are amazing." She gets into the wheelchair. There's no armrests. There's not a high back on these wheelchairs. Like, and you would think that these wheelchairs are specifically for quadriplegics because you have to put on that,
the helmet,
the headband that senses your thoughts. Yet there's no place to put your arms. You can't sit. There's like no way to hold your neck up. It's ridiculous.
It's that kneeling chair kind of idea. Where it's like,
how is that helpful?
Yeah, especially if you can't use your limbs, man. Why would you do this? It's like a great idea that they stopped halfway through and were like, you don't need the rest of those things on there. That's just going to cost more money.
You have to wear a Velcro shirt that kind of Velcros against the seat.
You in there real good, Don? Shake them.
And the other thing, the other main thing I want to talk about in the second episode is that it's when Ava sees the scar on her back that the halo made. And all I could think to myself was, man, that would have taken me weeks, like to see that I had this giant scar on my back, because I don't really, I don't look at my back very often. So I'd have been like, well, how the hell did that get? Like, it would have taken me forever.
Yeah, you ever look down and on your like arm or leg or something, and you're like, when did I scratch that or when did I bruise that? You don't even realize that happened. I could on your back, forget about it. And answer me this, tattoo people, because I'm curious.
Yes,
if you've got a tattoo on the back, and you every person that has a tattoo, I love you all. You're a bunch of strange, lovely weirdos. But it's always it's for me. It's for me. It's on your back. You can't see it. Why is that for you too? Come on now. Let's be honest.
It takes a lot of trust in your tattoo artist too. That'd be a great time to play a joke.
Yeah. I wouldn't trust any of them, especially because, if you're a person that gets a whole lot of tattoos, chances are is you're going to become friendly with that person in one way, shape, or form. And what do your friends do? Well, if you're a guy, they screw with you. So you're going to get God knows one on your back. Yeah. So that's on you, buddy.
Hey, the biggest upside to my tramp stamp is I can't see it.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's out of sight, out of your mind, it's okay.
I've never seen a dude with a lower back tattoo that says juicy, but you make it work, Bruce.
Yeah.
Oh man, I honestly have a tramp stamp. I have to show you sometime, Sean.
That was.
Do you really?
Yes.
Oh no.
The worst.
Oh no.
It's true. The one that I saw that
1996.
Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? Because that's when you make all your dumb mistakes.
Yes.
Get that, a couple of tribals and all that good stuff that made the 90s just perfect.
So let me ask you guys, what are your feelings on Joaquin de Alameda? Am I saying that right?
Yeah. I am a fan. I like. The biggest thing was 24 when he was on that, but he's been in everything, man.
I forgot he was on 24 because what I know him from best is Clear and Present Danger.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Oh, it's totally like room temperature tap water, not in a bad way. I just don't notice him, so I don't have any real thoughts on him.
Well, he becomes a much bigger deal later in the show, but he
does he become interesting? Because in these first 3 episodes, it feels like he has yet to have his coffee on set yet.
Well, you're not wrong, and I'm wondering if they could only get him for so many days, because I would imagine he's a fairly big deal.
Yeah, it did feel like it was all very kind of a lot of close-ups with him and a lot of just kind of, it felt like that.
Well, the man has put on some weight. I mean, I can remember him in Clear and Present Danger where there's that line of like, oh, I'm dating the Latin Jack Ryan. So basically he's in the same shape as Harrison Ford in that movie.
Yeah.
He ain't in this. I mean, he has not flown enough helicopters, I guess.
Yeah,
to stay thin. But I like him. I've always liked him. I think that it goes back to the 90s, and maybe it's just me looking at things through rose-colored glasses here, where I'm like, oh, he reminds me of my youth, seeing him, like that kind of thing. And so I seeing him in this show is a welcome thing, because I don't see him in a ton of stuff. Like I totally forgot he was in 24, but I haven't seen him in a lot lately. So to see him in this, it was like, man, hey, I remember that old pair of shoes.
Yeah, he's been in just more or less a lot of stuff that most people just haven't seen. But he's 140 something credits with that guy.
My word,
just out there. He's one of those cats that, like, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that will watch this will just go like, I seen that guy in something. He's definitely one of those guys.
Oh yeah. And I did the same thing with Toya Turner, who plays Shotgun Mary, because as you guys, I cannot use enough praise on top of her. So I looked her up too, because she seemed to have a lot more gravitas than a lot of the other girls on the show. So I looked her up, and she is in a ton of stuff, but she's in stuff that, like, she's in like Chicago Fire. Like,
yeah.
I do you know anyone who has seen that show? That show's been on for 8 years. I've never seen a single minute of that show.
It's weird because apparently it gets good ratings, and there's this whole interconnected universe, like Chicago Fire, Chicago Med.
She's on that too.
Yeah, they all like interconnect, kind of Marvel movie universe style. And I have zero interest in getting in that universe. I don't know anybody who knows about it, but I know it exists.
Maybe it's an old people thing.
It is, because I'm not sure if it's specifically that one, but my parents watch all kinds of crap that's kind of like that, more or less. If it ain't that, it's pretty close to it. So my guess is it's people like mid 60s to like mid 70s. I would guess that's probably their main audience.
To me, her coolest credit is that she did additional voices for Incredibles 2.
Over there.
That's good.
Ooh, one of those.
That's a hard job, man. I've done that before. Like being other people, modulating your voice enough to where it doesn't sound like your voice is not as easy as you think. It's not like doing an impression. It's a lot harder.
Well, I did a lot of prank phone calls back in the day, and I got to say.
Oh, well, then perfect. Then you're ready to go.
I know all about doing it poorly. Now, doing it well is another story.
That's true.
I know all about doing it poorly.
It is funny when you see like some people that are like just trying to get into voiceover stuff, and you like look at their reel, and they're of course all the characters in the entire thing, and it's like, ooh, your voices are not nearly as diverse as you think they are. It's the saddest part too, especially when it's like hooked up to like an actual image, so you can go ahead and imagine that character's voice, but it's like when they start talking to each other, ooh. Yeah, there should be a little bit more disparity within that voice range you got there.
I want to be like the Kevin Conroy style voice actor, where you just talk and they got to make it work.
Look, guys, I'm just going to talk for about 2 hours. Make a series out of this, please.
You'll put all that together. But I mean, as we saw with the Transformers, there you can replace Optimus Prime, and he wasn't terrible. The guy that did it, I thought for sure. If Peter Cullen isn't in this, I thought, man, this show's going to be doomed. But that guy did a good enough job, so it happens. You never know. That's why I'm hoping out for this girl for after these first 3 episodes. I'm hoping I see the change that Sean apparently has seen. I want to like this girl, but unfortunately, it's just kind of like.
I'm glad that you just took us back to episode 3, because that's what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah,
episode 3 is really the one where that's the one that got me.
If episode 3 was episode 1, I would probably like this better. It has the flashback to the First Crusade. You know, I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff in that time period. It's got the Divinium sword. We're starting to actually understand who this Ariala is. I don't know if they get into it later in the season, because I stopped at 3, but I was a little curious, like, why they didn't mention the Valkyrie part at all. But I do like the part of being in Cordoba in the First Crusade and that sort of stuff.
Well, I looked up a lot of their own crap here. We're like, okay, let's get in, like, because this is the one where really there's a lot there's a lot of history that they dig into. So, old guys like us are like, oh yeah, the stuff I love. And so by the way, best cold open of any of the episodes is episode 3. That's a really terrific cold open because you get to see exactly what Ava's power set is. Okay. And it's just fun and like cool to watch.
But can we all agree that the title sequence itself is very meh?
Very well. Put it this way, I don't remember at all what the title sequence is.
All it is just that, like the glowing halo. It says Warrior Nun. It ain't long, but it's like, okay, I guess that's it. It seems very 90s.
It's when you're talking about title sequence, do you mean the halo turning?
Yeah.
Red smoke,
where it just says Warrior Nun right in the middle. That little thing that's in there it's kind of like, okay, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you also don't want to make it, 15 minutes long,
no, I'm not
opening the Westworld.
Exactly. I was gonna say any one of those.
Too many cooks. I'm telling you, by episode 2, I would have loved a long intro.
It didn't. You don't have to push the dear God, please skip this Netflix button where it's over in 5 seconds. You'll be all right. But it is kind of like, all right, I guess it is. It is what it is. But you're right. At least it's not long.
Right. So the character of Adriel, who is the angel that they get the halo from, I looked it up because I had never heard of Adriel before. Had any of you guys?
Not to my recollection.
No, man.
Yeah, I thought it was made up, quite honestly, because it would make sense if it was made up. But nope. They did their homework because Adriel is he's one of the angels of death.
Oh, that's a cool angel.
And not really talked about a whole lot, but in the Bible, Adriel rules one of the 28 mansions on the moon.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's 28 of those.
28 mansions. Well, that's a pretty big place.
Hey, listen, let me ask you this. When's the last time we ever set foot on the moon? Been a long time. Some people say maybe we've never done it. Who's to say?
Yeah, I got an idea for a can't lose sitcom, Mansions on the Moon.
Oh, Mansion Hunter on the Moon. Put it on HGTV next week, boys.
So the Tarask, the demon that we see, the big old demon.
Yeah.
I was unfamiliar with that as well. And so that is that is French lore, like French Catholicism. And it is generally a female demon. Which,
cool.
It's interesting that they used the name, but not that it was female, especially when you have so many females on the show. Like it would be more sensible, but I guess at some point they were just like, you know what? Everybody's a lady on this show. We got to make something male. Didn't stop Star Wars, though. the first 3 Star Wars. There's 2 women in the entire universe.
All of a sudden, they were like, oh, wait a minute. There are no black people in this movie. Uh-oh. James Earl Jones, quick.
So, and my very favorite bit of garbage on this show is the Order of the Cruciform Sword.
Yes.
Because that isn't anything. That is not a real thing. What that actually is from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Except it's the Brotherhood of the Cruciform Sword, not the Order, because it would make sense because you couldn't call it the Brotherhood of the Cruciform Sword when it's all ladies. But I love that this fake thing that was made 25, 30 years ago is now in another property. I love it.
Well, let's pardon me, before we get to our final thoughts, and maybe if Bruce and I can be convinced to go back and check the last half of this season out, because it seems like somebody's high on it, we do have to ask ourselves one very important question: is how this television show relates 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone.
Well, thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement. Being in special effects for movies and film is a young man's game since the technology is forever evolving, and you need to be able to be willing to learn those new technologies to remain on the bleeding edge. And Pau Costa, who happens to be the special effects supervisor on the Netflix project called Warrior Nun, is one of those bleeding edge technologists. The problem is Pau Costa is 50 years old, which makes him by far the oldest special effects supervisor ever. And Pau Costa has been working on big movies like Fast and the Furious 6, The Revenant, and The Bourne Ultimatum being among them. But he got to start working in Spanish cinema, and as it so happens, worked on one of my favorite Spanish films of all time, Intacto, a movie I know that I've brought up on the show before, but since I don't imagine our listener retention is 100%, I'm going to bring it up again anyway. People from all over the world participate in a contest to see who's the luckiest person in the world. It's great. And if I ever have the money to buy the rights to that movie, I will. But what will I call it? For those who don't speak Spanish, the word intacto means intact, which is a terrible name for a movie, Intact. And just to give you a peek behind the curtain, I actually looked the word up. And it's such a bummer when you look up a word in a foreign language just to learn that it means exactly what you think it means. It's like I should know that, but I don't. And I get another chance to call myself stupid. But the original Spanish version of the movie Intacto is on Pau Costa's resume, which works out great for me because I have a Stallone connection this week, and I get to talk about the movie Intacto some more. Adam, you'll also be interested to know Pau Costa also worked on Time Crimes, which is a movie I know you love.
Oh, yeah.
But in 2019, Pau Costa was also the special effects supervisor for the movie Rambo Last Blood, which we've spoken about on the Stallone connection as recently as episode 320, The Old Guard. That the movie that started Netflix August, The Old Guard, and will launch a tradition we will not soon forget, for this I am certain. But here's the thing about Rambo Last Blood, in case you haven't seen it. It's a good movie. And I don't mean good, it's good for a Rambo movie. I mean, it's a good movie. And I know that I have sincerity issues, so much so that even my own children don't know when I'm being serious sometimes. So let me say to you one more time, with as much sincerity as I can muster, Rambo Last Blood is a movie that I like and will watch again someday. And there you have it, Kovaxers. This week's Stallone connection is the world's oldest special effects supervisor, Pau Costa. Adam and Bruce, it's now been 320 episodes. We've spoken about Sylvester Stallone and still no word from the man. Now let's wrap things up. I'm sure Bruce has other things he needs to be doing.
Certainly. Just, send our love to Stallone, everybody. That's all we ask. Well, here at Hero Movie Podcast, we have our own patented Robin rating system. You can check that out over at reddit.com/r/Hero Movie Podcast. It's right there at the top of the screen, but we will refrain from doing that this episode on account of Bruce and I have only watched the first 3 episodes. So let me put it to you this way. Let's take this portion to say, Sean, sell me and Bruce why we should watch the last half of this.
Absolutely. It gets much, much deeper into the Catholicism and the superpowers and the machinations of the Catholic Church. Those are reasons to see it. Also, it makes you, it made me really, really love the character of Shotgun Mary. She is by far, she's basically the Wolverine of the show. And she gives you reason to think so in later episodes.
Okay.
And Ava, the character of Ava, played by Alba Batista. Man, that's hard. Alba Batista, she is just like a shining light. I like watching her perform. I think that she's a great actress. I think that we're going to see her, and I think that we're going to see Toya Turner and a lot more things. And it's because of this show, because they are so terrific.
All right, Bruce, what do you think? You think we ought to, at some point in the nearest...
I feel like the least we could do is follow Sean's recommendation and watch the rest of this show here before too long.
All right.
It's up to you guys. I mean, it's totally up to you guys.
It actually got my interest by episode 3, so why not give it a chance?
Yeah,
now,
I felt like
maybe
it was.
If we'd watched 4 episodes instead of 3, I'd even feel differently.
Yeah, I think I was kind of the same bus where like there's just enough in there to keep me interested enough to where it goes. And upon your kind of talking up of second half here and everything, I think it's safe to say I'd give it a shot. So yeah, we'll put that off and talk about the last half of that, and not too awful long. In the meantime, Bruce, where might we find more of your work on the internet?
I'm just going to cede my time to mention that Hasbro's released some new Star Wars 5-packs, and I think I'm going to buy one of those. So go check those out.
What?
Yes. Celebrate the Saga is the tag on them. They look cool.
Are they the same size as the original Kenner?
Yeah, they look it to me.
Oh,
I'm just looking at pictures, though. I haven't seen them in person.
Yowza,
they look cool.
Yowza.
Sean, what action figures would you like to pimp this week?
I think I'm following Bruce's lead. You can find me on our other shows like Mandalorian 30 Questions. We've got a new 30 Questions show coming very, very soon. You should check that one out.
You want to go ahead? You want to go ahead
and say now, or do you want to roll out?
Let's go ahead and say
Let's go ahead and do it.
We are starting a new 30 Questions, which is The Boys Season 2 30 Questions. That will be very, very exciting indeed.
We've already got all the stuff.
We
for
hope
it.
to see you on the other side.
Yeah, so we already got all the stuff and everything ready. We're just going to put down an episode, like an early episode, and not too awful long and stuff. But we'll keep you guys abreast. But it's going to happen very quickly, like a lot of the other things that we do. We just go boom. That's what we're doing. But honestly, still. It is kind of weird. So we almost feel like we've got a long time compared to how we did Snowpiercer, which was like two days later. We were like, okay, the episode's up and rolling. Here, at least we've got like a little over a week. So check that out. Follow us.
It's
on all
almost
the
like we
places.
have no plan and are just seat of the pantsing it.
Yeah, all over the place. For Sweet Sean's Kovacs from the internet, Bruce Leslie. My name is Adam Portras. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.